Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. I am Akhilesh Suman and you are watching Rajya Sabha Television. I have a very special guest today, Avigail Spira. She is a very senior diplomat of Israel and she is also spokesperson of Israeli embassy in India. Welcome, Abigail.
Thank you for having me, Akhilesh.
Abigail, we are living in a time when, because of COVID-19, coronavirus, everyone in the world is scared. And diplomacy is one such profession which needs lots of assimilation, meeting people, talking to people, having, parties, embracing people. So how is the work of diplomats getting affected because of coronavirus?
Well, you're right. Typically, we do have a very social kind
Right.
of profession, and
Mm,
with social distancing, that
yeah.
that has quite an impact on diplomacy. I have to say, though, that like everyone else, like every other profession, we're still at a stage that we're figuring that out.
Mm,
How do we continue? How do we keep doing our job, which is bringing countries closer together, people closer together, when everyone is in their home? Um, so there are several ways that we address this. First of all, social media is a huge part. We're all
right.
sitting at home on our couch or on the computer, and we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're connecting with others. And digital diplomacy, which has been a part of diplomacy for some time now, really shifted into a new focus.
Yes,
It's
that's a very interesting thing that you are telling. But before coming to that, after the lockdown was declared in India,
mm.
how was your life? Life in the office, life outside the office. How you spend your time in that way?
I think that in a way, similar to other people in India, like
Right.
everyone else, and in a way, a little bit different. We obviously adhered to the lockdown. We only arrived to the embassy when absolutely necessary in separate teams with social distancing on opposite days. We've taken absolutely every precaution. So we've been working from home as well, which is rebalancing work and personal life in a completely new way. Like everyone else, we're learning how to work on the computer while being with our children, and with diplomacy. Really, it's 24/7. Especially if you're working on social
Right.
media or
Right. Right.
bringing Israelis back to Israel. It was working nonstop, but in a different setting, and it
That
took
means
some music getting used to.
there is no limit of time when you are locked down at home.
Yeah, there is no limited time. There's no 9 to 5 job. Not that
Right.
diplomacy ever was a 9 to 5 job. But yes, you're constantly trying to connect, trying to understand what's going on. How are the people feeling? How are people in Israel feeling? How can we connect those two? And that's been kind of the focus. How do we connect not only the professionals, the government level, the diplomatic channels, business researchers, etc., but also how do we make people feel part of that global community, and that's something special between India and Israel.
Right. And you are also one of the persons who has been closely associated with media, other personalities in the country. And evacuation was one of the major issues that you had to evacuate Israelis from India. So how easy task it was and how did you manage it?
Well, it was a very complex puzzle. We had Israelis everywhere. As you know,
Right.
Israelis love, love, love traveling India. They love everything about incredible India, and they reached really special places. So it took us some time to be able to find a way to get everyone to either Delhi or Mumbai or Goa, and from there on flights. We had amazing cooperation with the Ministry of External Affairs, with the Ministry of Civil Aviation, with local authorities and police. It was not easy, but it went mostly smoothly thanks to this amazing relationship that we've cultivated over the years by being here, by meeting these people, by knowing who the person on the other side is, which is the essence of diplomacy. And it's a way that we not only connect India, but use that in order to get things done, which was very well done, I have to say, in the first few
You, you
weeks.
you are almost completing 4 years here in India.
Yes.
So how had been your feeling? Don't answer diplomatically, answer from the experience.
I had the most amazing 4 years in India that any diplomat could wish for, especially a diplomat at the beginning of their diplomatic career. We had, from the minute I got here, amazing peaks. We had the presidential visit of Ravi Rivlin here in India, then Prime Minister Modi in Israel, and Prime Minister Netanyahu back in India. And every time that you feel that you've reached a peak, a new height, that's it, this is the highest you're going to get, it just keeps climbing. And that's a really special feeling to be, it's amazing to be part of that. I also absolutely fell in love with India, the culture, the food, the people. I will definitely be carrying India with me for the rest of my life. And it's been a very special experience, both professionally and personally.
You are not just a diplomat, you are also a family person. You
Yes.
are living here with the family. So how your family has been experiencing India? Because Israel is, a country that is quite developed country, very good infrastructure. India is a country which is almost crowded everywhere. You will see people everywhere. So how did you feel about how your family felt about it?
Well, I first came here alone, actually. For the first 6 months, it was just me. Then my husband joined. And about halfway through my posting, my son was born. So,
Okay.
in a way, as a family, we also assimilated quite gradually. It was an initial shock. I think everyone who doesn't know India, who reaches for the first time, there's this, all the senses are suddenly activated. There's the sights and the sounds and the smells and the tastes, and it can be overwhelming, but I think that we dealt with it very well as a family, and we might even miss the crowded and the noise at some point.
How will you feel now?
How am I feeling now?
Right.
I am heartbroken that I will be finishing my posting this summer.
Oh,
I am very sad to leave. I've taken a lot of life lessons from India, and I mean, we wish we could be leaving on a more open note, being able to meet everyone that we've befriended over the last 4 years and say
right.
goodbye properly to all of our amazing contacts. But it's a special way to end a special posting, and I'm certain that we will be back.
Oh, he will come back again. There is no doubt
Absolutely.
about it.
I have no doubt.
Person who loves a country like this, he will be, yes, he will be coming back again. Anyway, you know that this is also the time that, as you were telling, that digital diplomacy is taking the center stage. And I was reading your article you had written somewhere. So you have given very good comparative analysis of digital diplomacy and face-to-face diplomacy. So how do you think? Do you think that this digital diplomacy can, add value to the normal diplomacy that goes on between the two countries?
Absolutely. In fact, it already has been. For some time now, digital diplomacy has been a growing focus within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel, and I have to say around the world. You see more and more ministries, embassies, diplomats taking this tool and using it. Because at the end of the day, it's another tool in the what we call the public diplomacy belt toolkit, in which public diplomacy basically says it's not enough to have developed relations just with the government level. You need to really reach out to the people and create a
Yeah.
dialogue with them on that level in order to ensure that the relations keep growing, that there are more connections, more bridges, and it only makes the relations stronger. So in India, we've been doing that for a while. We see it in other embassies around the world as well. And what's really special is that you're able to have this dialogue not only from the embassy channels, but also the diplomat channels. So that feeling that you're following a diplomat here in India and you know a little bit about them and you know what they like and dislike, what they've tasted, where they've visited, why they connect to your country, why they respect Indian culture, it cultivates the same kind of respect and interest in Israeli culture among the followers. And then you really bring this bridge then people want to say, okay, so I didn't want to visit Israel before, but now I do. I didn't know that there were education opportunities in Israel, but now I'm looking into it. Or I want to grow my business, and apparently Israel is the best place for me to do that. All of that is done by using social media to create a channel through which all that information flows, and we are able to basically expand the relations.
So you mean to say that digital diplomacy has provided you another tool for normal diplomacy,
Absolutely.
normal
Absolutely. And I mean, up until now, I would say that it was a means to an end in a way. It was a way to kind of amplify our activity, show people what we do, give information, kind of a way to publicize what we're doing in the bilateral relations. But now it's really become also not just a platform as a tool, but a platform as a place where we can meet together. We've seen global events being done
right,
online that could have
right.
been done 3 months ago, but suddenly they're being done because of this crisis of COVID-19. They're saying, okay, well, if we're already having a webinar, if we're already doing a live chat or some kind of viewing, then let's open it up to everyone. And that's when you really get this global community going. That's when you can really reach out to people and get a connection that up until now has been there, but the potential hadn't been tapped into quite yet.
What is the experience of your embassy diplomats and yours also when you do the face-to-face diplomacy? You go and meet officials, when you go and meet your counterparts in external affairs ministry or various other departments in the government. But when you are talking on web or any internet devices, so what is the difference you feel in both the types of communication?
Well, I think the obvious is, the depth of conversation. When you're sitting in front of someone, having coffee or some kind of meal or just a formal meeting, you can have a much deeper conversation than you can on 280 characters. But at the same time, you get to know people on social media, albeit a bit slower than you would personally. When you do sit down in front of someone, and everyone knows this, we've been on dates or on, dinners with people, and you come out of that dinner and you feel that you know them so much better. With social media, it takes time to get to that level, but it's not impossible. I have to say that there are some people in India, some journalists that after 4 years I still haven't met, but I feel I have a personal relationship with them because we tweet at each other so often.
All right.
That there is this kind of affinity. Is it the same? No, it's not entirely the same. I don't think that a personal interaction can ever really be replaced. But in the time of COVID-19, especially now with social distancing and the fact that we can't go out to a coffee shop and meet in person, I think that it's a good way to keep going and keep forging ahead in the situation, and it can give you a lot of the same things as meeting people in person.
Normally in diplomacy, what you do that sometimes you are very nuanced in your words, but when you try to connect with people on digital platform, you have to be very precise. You have to be very direct. You cannot use nuanced words. So does it create problem in diplomacy, the traditional practice of diplomacy, or it is opening a new vistas of your conversation?
I think that they're not mutually exclusive. You have to decide what you're putting on social media. If social media is your way to put out a public message, then yes, you have to be very, very precise. But if you want that nuance and you need that layer of, let's call it privacy, then you would have a conversation that's a little bit more closed, a little bit more personal, be it on Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, whatever it is that you're using. Obviously, when you go public, and when it's a tweet that anyone can read, there are elements that you won't be able to say, or that you won't be able to say at least in the same way. But there's also what I really love about social media is that there's a lot of room for humor and being a little bit more relaxed. And that's what I really enjoy about being a diplomat here in India. Someone tweets a question at me, and maybe if I'm on television, I'll be a lot more formal and very, precise. But on social media, I could also just answer with a GIF or with an emoji or some kind of joke or a video. And that kind of interaction also makes things more personal, lighter, and makes you feel like you're able to connect even though you're not really answering the question
Okay. Okay.
as such. So it's another diplomatic tool. It's just a little different than what we're used to.
All right. So I can see that you have a very large following and your diplomacy is also doing very well with the public because of the type of reactions I see on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your, embassies, social media platforms. So how do you think that the type of standing Israel does have in the world, how have been winning the hearts of those people who are not basically very friendly to Israel? Can you give me some example through digital?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. First of all, it's easier to be here in India and to get to know India and then be able to tweet to different audiences and learn what interests them, their language, those things. It's aided by the fact that we're here. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been using social media to reach out even to countries that don't even recognize the state of Israel. Granted, it's not going for the government or for the leadership of the country that obviously has its own reasons not to engage, but engaging directly with the people. So, for
Like,
example,
can you
there's
name? Yeah.
yeah, so there's a Twitter account, for example, of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Persian, reaching out to people in Iran, hundreds of thousands of Iranians who would love to hear what Israel has to say, but have no formal way of doing that, no way of reaching out. So social media has been able to kind of bridge that gap, and we have amazing things coming out of that. There was just this weekend a really sweet campaign of Shalom from Iran, which was beautiful and was echoed by the ministry account. That's not the only kind of channel. We also have a Facebook page in Arabic that's reaching out to publics all over the Arab world, Gulf countries. And again, Facebook is a little bit more popular in those countries than Twitter. So, you choose where to go. And that particular page has 2 million
Oh,
followers around the world. So when you have this, this barrier that's physical or political, it doesn't necessarily have to stop you from doing social media. And what we're really, really hoping to do with that is to gain some kind of understanding, some kind of feeling like Israel is a normal country, a country that contributes to the world, a country that's open and friendly and wants to have peace with the world. And if we have enough contact with people around the world in countries that currently don't have relations with us, perhaps one day that will be able to change, and hopefully in the nearer rather than farther future.
so you are also doing the same in experience, having the same experience like from Egypt through Jordan. What
So
is the
in
response?
Egypt and Jordan, we actually do have
Yeah, your
diplomatic
yeah,
ties.
yeah.
We have peace treaties. There are embassies there. But yes, that those embassies also, they have their own channels of communication with people. Obviously, it's always going to be more effective when you have people on the ground, people who read the same newspapers, watch the same television, feel the culture and know what the topics of discussion are. But it's not exclusive. You can still do a lot of outreach and really touch people even when you're miles and miles apart.
Like in normal diplomacy, Abigail, you do lots of paperwork, you might be exchanging emails, but in this type of digital diplomacy, you have, thousands of, tweets and Facebook posts and everything. So is it real that you or your staff or your people in the foreign ministry in Jerusalem or anywhere, do they see all the tweets, all the posts, and they respond it, or it is just coming and then it's okay, thank you?
That's a good question. I think you have to make an effort.
Right.
I know that I personally check everything that it's on my tweets. I have an amazing team here, but again, I am usually the person to check most of the messaging and the notifications for the embassy handle as well. It's I think it's a matter of priorities and personal choice. But at the embassy, at the ministry, there are people who are dedicated to that they go over, they choose
Yeah.
which ones to reply to, what to do. If you're not going to engage, if you're not going to reply to at least the friendly, if not all of the notifications and messages, then there's no point in getting out there. Twitter and social media in general, it's really about having that discussion, having an open kind of dialogue. And that requires, yeah, some time in going over and checking notifications and checking inboxes. But it's worth
Why?
it. It's an
Why? Why?
investment that's worth it.
Why I'm asking, because we had a great external affairs minister earlier, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj,
Of course.
and who was known to be, replying on tweets and replying on social media, and he even created good network of people who are functioning on those social media, and she implemented various programs through the social media. She addressed the concerns of many individuals on through social media. So when you write an article about digital diplomacy, do you think that digital diplomacy in coming days, taking experience from Corona times, is going to be very, very strong and effective tool for diplomacy all over the world?
Absolutely. And I think that, what Sushma ji did, she was legendary on Twitter, I have to say.
Right,
Um, and that's exactly what is that's exactly the point of social media, really connecting with people, not just saying. It's not a blog, it's not a website, it's not a
right.
press release that you send out there and wait for the information to forward itself. You have to really engage and make people aware that you care, that you're open to talking, to answering questions. And when you do that, then people really want to know what you have to say. I don't think that many people followed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the minister before Sushma did what she did.
Right.
So you really do get the sense of, the more you engage, the more people want to hear what you have to say. And then it's effective because, especially now, you're saying under COVID-19, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to have these diplomatic ties continue to grow when everyone is
Right.
closing in their own homes, in their own countries? That's how you open up your phone, your laptop, you engage, you meet people, you have conversations. And from that, a lot of good can come, be it just understanding one another better and learning about each other, or even finding joint solutions and ideas for research and ways to beat the virus together that can also come from the same channels. So it's important to cultivate them and strengthen them as
Mm.
wide and as big as you can, to ensure that everyone can connect and bring more good into this world.
But if it is so effective, cannot we do the same thing sitting in Jerusalem? Why to keep an embassy here in India or in many other
That
parts of
is
the world?
an excellent question. And my answer to that has to be when we lit candles under lockdown. I think it was lockdown 2.0, or near the end of the first lockdown, when we all went out onto our balconies and lit candles for solidarity with one another, with the health workers, with India at large. That feeling of everyone stepping out, lighting those candles, being together, understanding how difficult it is to be under lockdown in India, how different it is, how life has changed, being able to go or not to go to the restaurants that you love, the Indian foods, the neighbors that you've grown to attach with. It's all of those things. You can't do that from Jerusalem. You can't do that even if you set aside time differences and all the technical issues.
All right.
There's something fundamental about being a part of the society here in the posting, wherever your posting is, that you can't replace. It makes your interactions more genuine. You understand the people you're speaking to a whole lot more. You're able to learn the language. You're able to understand the holidays, take part in, let's say, playing Holi. That's an inseparable part of,
Right.
being here in India. You do all of those things, and suddenly you feel a part of India as much as you are a part of the country that you're representing. And then you are able to really create that bridge to make sure that what you're saying is heard, and that also the people in the posting that you're at really want to hear what you have to say.
So we are reaching, towards the end of our conversation. I have just two questions. If suppose you had been facing big challenge from all over the world, many countries of the world, as far as politics and diplomacy is concerned. How much credit will you give to use of digital diplomacy by Israel in winning the propaganda war?
And well, I
Winning it.
think uh, look, at the end of the day, social media is, again, like I said, it's a tool.
Because why I'm asking, because you are directly interacting with people of the countries, people of the world. So it is not that you are just addressing one official sitting in north block, south block of India, or many other embassies or foreign affairs ministries, but you are addressing everywhere, every people of the world through your Twitter account, through your Facebook post, through your other social media platform. So how much credit should be given to this type of digital diplomacy by your foreign ministry, uh, or face to face diplomacy?
I think it's like a finger on a hand, right? Without it, the hand won't work as well, but it's not the only thing that you need. At the end of the day, it's part of that toolkit, that belt that we have to deal with whatever it is that we want to do as a ministry. If we want to strengthen relations with existing partners, if we want to create relations where there aren't any, it's one way with which you can engage. I don't think that it'll ever really replace sitting inside some office with a person who's on the other side of you, who can really hear your messaging and help you
No,
promote
no.
things and
My
get things
question is
done.
that could you have connected with people of India so much if you did not have any digital
Probably,
platform?
probably not. No, I think the digital platform has really enhanced a lot of my experience here in India. It could be little things like tell me how you celebrate your
Right.
different holidays, and then suddenly you're able to see parts of India that you wouldn't have been able to see before, to experience part of India's family life, social life, traditions.
So this part of diplomacy also strengthens that part of diplomacy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when you finally have this kind of dialogue between people, it's an interest,
Right.
then you're able to strengthen like, support for the relations, and also the governmental level isn't the only structure that's important in bilateral relations. You have government to government, business to business, people to people, and the more bridges you create between those, the more ties, the less reversible it becomes. And that's what you really want to do. You want to be able to solidify the relations with as many people in the different countries as you can. And that way you ensure that no matter what happens, be it COVID, be it changes in governments, be it the climate change, whatever it is, that the relations are still going to be
Right.
there.
So do you connect with the people in Palestine also through social media, Twitter accounts, or you connect in a different mode with them?
I think that there are discussions that are happening on social media between Israelis and Palestinians. I
Right.
don't think that there's a specific channel for that, but again, the Arab channels that we have do disseminate the same amount of information. There are dialogues. You see a lot of people in Israel who are willing and open to just talk to Palestinians through social media. It
Right.
can be one of those things that can lead to better understanding and hopefully one day peace. But we're all hoping for that.
And my last question, that
Yes.
that when the head of governments are talking over phone, most of the time they can pick up the phone and they can talk to. So this is also a new phenomena in international diplomacy. In that situation, what is the future of normal formal diplomats?
Well, at the end of the day, behind those phone calls and those very powerful people are teams that help prepare for the call, that make sure that what was said on the call is actually done. These big, important leaders, they have a lot on their plate. They can't bring everything that they say into action. And that's where we come in. As diplomats, we make sure that the promises and the projects and all of those ideas come to fruition and become a reality by meeting the people here, by knowing what happens, how to do things, what are the correct channels to make sure they happen. And in that sense, there's really no way that the Diplomat can stop going on postings, because at the end, you need someone on the ground who's able to make sure that all those beautiful ideas, all that potential becomes reality.
Right. So with that note, I expect that the India lover, that is Abigail Shapira, will come back again to India in a new profile,
Absolutely.
in a new situation. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Abigail,
very
for
much,
talking to us.
Akhilesh. Thank
Thank you.
you.